send?
Yeah, I'll send a screenshot right now.
One sheet? One sheet?
Yeah, one sheet. Nothing crazy.
Alright, let me just open it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you say the side before you start so that I can?
Yes. Con Monte Vista.
Alright, hold up. We're fun on D&D, so we don't get a call. Whatever.
Alright, good? Cool. Alright, this is Monte Vista speaking on the con. If everyone's good, time to just start on the first word. Monte Vista negates. Since its creation, the ICC has been an organization doomed for failure. Raidmaker 21 finds the ICC suffers from fundamental structural defects that render it an obstacle to peace. A case in which the ICC's intervention in ongoing conflicts has served primarily to impede prospects for peaceful settlement. Indeed, judges are unqualified. First 10 writes that unqualified judges who have no expertise on international law, and in one case no legal qualifications, have been appointed to key positions because of highly politicized voting systems and a lack of transparency. A judge who did not have a law degree or any legal qualifications was appointed to the ICC after financial support. Outside Prorox 17, in a meta-study of the effects of the ICC on resolving conflicts in the long run, finds that data sets of all civil conflict supports that active involvement by the ICC significantly decreases the likelihood of conflict termination. C1 is military. Currently, the US is leading the world due to military capabilities, allowing it to defend its allies. Euro 24 finds the US stands unrivaled as a military superpower. Severe military cuts are catastrophic and ignite a vicious cycle of waning global influence. Unfortunately, ratifying the Rome Statute tempts the court to turn political. Groves 9 says that US forces are located in 100 nations engaging in peacekeeping and humanitarian operations. The worldwide extension of US armed forces is internationally unique, ensures that it's not exposed to politically motivated investigations. Every decision by the US to use force, however, could conceivably give cause to America's enemies to file charges at the ICC. Additionally, the nebulous nature of the Rome Statute creates hesitance to act. Neo 20 writes that consequences of reinterpreting LOAC notions such as attack disrupt the balance between military needs and humanitarian considerations. It causes military operators to restrain themselves during conflict and refrain from taking lawful actions because of perceived risk. Thus, Groves 9 concludes, the ICC could have a chilling effect on the willingness of states to project power in defense of their moral interests for those threatened by genocide and despotism who can only be protected through the use of force. An unhindered, flexible military is critical to power projection and deterring adversaries. Hunter 19 explains that flexible deterrent options facilitate early decision-making, rapid de-escalation, and crisis resolution, predictably responding to attacks against the U.S. and its interests. Action conducted to establish conditions and operational area for strategic plans, the ability of an army force to prevent stems from an adversary's realization that escalation results in defeat. U.S. power projection is key to upholding human rights and limiting war deaths. Barnett 11 explains that the U.S. military has been the greatest force for peace the world has ever known. Resulted was the spread of human rights, the doubling of life expectancy, and a 99% drop in deaths due to war. Military power projection is essential to the U.S.'s goal of maintaining peace, and a limit to the legitimacy risks extinction. Grant 18 explains that America is committed to overwhelming military primacy. The U.S. accounts for 45% of world defense spending and maintains peerless global power projection capabilities. Great power military competition is back. Russia has conducted major military modernization, emphasizing nukes, has carried a build-up historic proportion, no has massive nuclear arsenal, intercontinental delivery, Iran's remaining nuclear threshold. U.S. will continue to place significant operational demands on U.S. forces. C2 is counterterror. U.S. counter-terror efforts are increasing to rely on drone strikes. Rollins 23. From 2010 to 20, the U.S. undertook over 14,000 drone strikes. As the U.S. transitioned away from manned counterterrorism missions, the U.S.'s armed drones will increase, and the ability to get closer to ground-based targets enables greater precision, reducing unintentional death. But Rome bans drone strikes against non-state actors. Adversary 14 finds the statute provisions ban targeting against non-combatants. Under the Rome Statute, terrorists and non-state actors constitute protected civilians. Launching drones implicates liability under Article 28. Drone operations are key to disrupting safe havens, given that Reagan 22 finds that evidence indicates that strikes significantly weakened and disrupted AQC, causing evacuation of relatively safe havens, which could plan and train individuals for attacks in the West. They contribute lowering risk of attack. Safe havens uniquely enable WMD terrorism, given that Binder 23 finds that once an actor obtains the raw materials, he needs suitable space. Safe havens make weapon production feasible, transformative effects of safe havens, illustrated by the seizure of Northern Iraq. It'll be nuclear. Sacra 23 finds that threats of extremism and WMDs have risen, presenting an enormous threat. Al-Qaeda is a top threat to America, persistently works to obtain nukes. Iran is a top state sponsor. This relation makes an Iran-sponsored Al-Qaeda attack worrisome. Nuclear strikes guarantee extinction. SARC 15, nuclear strike may lead to unstoppable global nuclear war. Consequence will be powerful simultaneous tornadoes. A powerful anti-gravitational effect takes place. Independently, Rowan 24 quantifies that attacks of terrorism have caused the death of at least 249,000 people.
Sorry, I'm just copying and paste right now.
No worries.
Cool. That should be sent.
I think I just got it.
Yeah, I see it now.
Is anybody not ready? I'm Amrita Safdari, speaking for Fairmont Prep on the app. We from Contention One's Eco Side, the ICC is going to prosecute for environmental damage. Dasbak 24 finds the Karim Khan prosecutor. The ICC announced new policy initiative to advance accountability for environmental crimes as a key to mitigate climate change. As root from December find the ICC hold individuals involved in environmental damage, criminal charges and imprisonment. The ICC will add a Eco Side much quicker than people think. It's only a question of time. Prosecution will fail without major powers. Harvey 24 finds there's been a growing progress as people are increasingly aware of the threat of climate. ICC can't deal with this in a meaningful sense, and the scope of the ICC is limited as the U.S. is not party to it. Otherwise, its existentialist Chem 22 finds that climate change collapses societies and mass extinctions. Climate change trigger catastrophic risks such as disease, such as conflict disease. Contention 2 is efficiency. The ICC is currently underfunded. As coalition for ICC in 22 finds that underfunding of the court has led to the gap between the court's workload and resources available. ICC 23 finds that additional needs with respect to staffing, security, language services, witness protection, mission support from a field presence in relation to the situation in Bangladesh, Sudan, Venezuela, and Ukraine. Luckily, when the U.S. joins funding is met as Brahman 23 finds that Article 17 of the Rome Statute states are assigned a proportion of the overall budget that is based on the size of their economies. ICC's largest funders are large economies, and Trump would demand other countries to up their commitments like he did with NATO. NATO 25 NATO was glad to welcome America's clear expectations for all allies to carry their fair share of the burden, with full two-thirds allies spending at least 2% of their GDP on defense. We need to do more. Several announced large increase in spending in today's meeting. The victim of funding cuts to Sudan's ICC budget in 25 finds that the increase requested by offices in the Ukraine and CAR has been completely offset by reduction identified in Sudan. The ICC action in Sudan were empirically effective. Numbers don't lie. Hort Nickel in 25 that the ICC had a deterrent effect at the beginning. Models predict 3 times lower fatalities following referral. Arrest warrant associated with largest decrease in civilian fatalities. Sudan is experiencing an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. The Walsh last month finds that Sudan's military used chemical weapons. Documented atrocities include indiscriminate bombing and starvation. The weapon conflict has created 150,000 people killed, 11 million displaced. Ongoing Sudanese conflict risks regional instability. As Kiros in 24 finds the conflict poses a risk of further destabilizing neighbor countries. Refugees flood create opportunities for organized crime and extremist groups. Conflict threatens regional security. Conflict is inevitable, cause a great power war. As Elmian 24 finds that Africa is on the cusp of war. Tensions have escalated. The region is a time bomb. War would be devastating. Conflict drawing Red Sea states all consider the water essential for security. U.S., China, Europe all have military presence. Iran and Russia entered the fray. This caused extinction of nuclear winter. Finds that Star 15 finds that a nuclear war would create a post-war environment too cold and dark to grow food. Humans would vanish forever. Contention 3's laws. The U.S. is integrating AI in war fighting. Trump is dialing restrictions. As Coffin 25 finds the Pentagon considering incorporating AI in the military. Now that Trump take office, the industry is full stream ahead. Industries announced a slew of initiatives. OpenAI announced entry in the military market. Meta announced agreements including decision-making. Affirming salt that a whole developer is liable for unjustified aggressions. Hassan 23 finds that since climate international, the ICC take jurisdiction over crimes. Article 17 of Rome, a systems manufacturer could be held liable. The ICC provides a solution to AI where individuals will be liable if beyond borders allowed under law. Perceptually, AI developers are risk-averse to liability. Smith 23 finds that areas for concern on for AI on the battlefield hesitancy is related to fear of being liable for mistakes. Investor confidence makes it perceptual. Schmidt 24 finds that the legal action can drastically affect a company's stock price. Market sentiment can become steamroller and lead to motor selling before a lawsuit can be properly evaluated. A company facing litigation can expect an adverse average stock price a decline of 5% following the announcement. Otherwise, automation escalates conflict and encourages aggression. Nuclear hotspots. U24 finds that AI in warfare raises concerns. Autonomous systems escalate conflict. They act inpredictably and misinterpret data. Escalation in South China Sea Arctic grows insignificantly where tensions already exist. Autonomous decision making make engagement faster. Misidentified by AI. Spark conflict. Human won't detect failures. Stress creates automation biases. Claire 25 the dangerous automation bias or tendency to stress out decision maker to trust the computer's data could misinterpret adversary moves, order, strike, prompting an escalatory cycle. Any nukes, specifically sea drones, are coming to Taiwan. As Michelson 24 finds that Washington and Taipei launch an initiative to create sea drones in the 1,000 by 2025. Part of the strategy to counter the invasion of Taiwan. Sea drones create user lose pressure on China's second strike guarantees first strike. As Johnson 20 finds that UUV swarms locate and destroy nuclear subs even if not intended or capable of disarming the perception would create incentives to strike first. Encounters would be accident prone and destabilizing. Commanders fear their SSBN fleets wouldn't be neutralized. Co-op Star 15 from C2. Also, I'll read a little bit of defense right now. On the overview, they don't read any specific warrants as to why the ICC is bad. It just asserts that the ICC is bad in prolonged conflict. Don't let them read new warrants in the next speech because that nullifies the point of reading warrants in the first place. That's really, really bad for debate at large. And at that point, you know that like There's nothing on C1. Yeah, I'll send a mark right now. I just marked a star.
Yeah.
Could we not prep while choosing the mark, please? Thanks.
Oh, actually, star is correct in the highlights are correct.
Nothing marked.
We good for cost?
Actually, we want to run
Oh.
10 seconds of prep.
I guess we'll run some
Oh.
preps. That's 9 seconds.
Real quick,
Yeah.
sorry, can you just repeat the response, like the final response you said to their?
Oh yeah, there's no warrants in the overview as to why the ICC is bad. Their evidence just says ICC bad. Don't let them read new warrants in the
Okay.
next speech. Good for cross?
Yeah.
You can have the first question.
Cool. Okay. Let's talk about AI. So let's hypothetically, let's say that Sam Altman, he goes and creates like the bad AI. Military uses it, right? So the AI is already made. How does prosecuting Sam Altman solve the AI has already been made?
Yeah, so specifically what we would say is that the way that the ICC works is that they take referrals and turn them into prosecutions in cases. The reason that that would probably nip things with AI in the bud is because as soon as the ICC catches wind of the US using that in one scenario, they're able to solve back by prosecuting, which creates a perceptual decline in the company's
Wait, so
stocks.
who's gonna refer this to the ICC? Like, if the military is like doing it, right? Aren't they supportive of it? Why would they refer to the ICC?
The ICC has a few ways of getting cases. Yes, there are self-referrals, but there are also things that the ICC can choose to investigate on its own. I'll take the question.
Wait, so you're telling me that the ICC has insight into these confidential like military operations?
It's not that
that are, like,
the
top
ICC.
secret.
It's not that the ICC has insight into confidential military
But
operations.
these
It's-
AI operations are like highly confidential, correct?
Then why do you and I know about it? We've spent a minute on it. I'll take the
Like
question.
all we know is that there's just
We've spent a
AI,
minute
we don't
on
know
this.
any
I'll take the
details. So,
question.
yeah, sure.
If you want to like.
Sure, you can have a question.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your C2. How specifically do terrorists get nukes?
How do they get nukes?
Who are they getting nukes from?
So we tell you that they can collaborate with state actors, such as Iran, for example, and
Okay,
they
so
also
is this scenario, is all the evidence just about Iran?
not only evidence about Iran.
So
we
who
tell you
else
that
is,
ISIS
who else
also
is
has
mentioned in the evidence?
ISIS also has safe havens that they could use.
Wait, ISIS is not a state actor. Your evidence says that state actors are the
State
ones
actors
who.
and non-state actors. We
So
mentioned
ISIS
both
has
safe
nukes?
havens. No, ISIS doesn't have nukes because we're able to take out their safe havens right now.
Okay, so yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
You can get a
okay.
question.
Great, so let's talk about ecocide. So, you say like the ICC has like a new policy initiative. Like, what is this policy initiative? What does it mean?
Yeah, so right now, the new prosecutor, Kareem Khan, wants to introduce a new crime called ecocide. It would be considered like a crime against the environment, and the ICC would be able to go after transnational corporations for,
Wait, so what is a crime against the environment?
Let's say right now, there are like a bunch of transnational corporations that actively harm the environment through their industrial processes, whether that be like through manufacturing or whether that has more to do with like how they transport goods. Like there are definitely ways that like whether it's through emissions,
So as a
pollutions,
clarification,
etc.
like do you go after the CEOs or like do you go after like people like let's say I were to go
Yeah,
outside,
you
I
go
throw
after-
like throw a
you
plastic
go
cup on the
after-
floor, does the ICC go
No,
after
you
me?
go after individuals and corporations. I don't think that the ICC is going to like specifically spend its resources on going after you if you drop a water bottle. I'll
Okay,
take a
so
question.
you're saying like
I'll take a question. Let's talk about the military, or let's talk about counterterror, right?
Yeah.
Can you read me, or which like part of the Rome statute says we can't use drones? Which article?
Which article?
Yeah. Where in the
It's
Rome statute does
Article
it say?
8.
And it says we cannot use drones at all, right?
It says that non-state actors and terrorists constitute protected civilians.
So that doesn't say anything about drones, so that's cross.
And also Article 20 as advertised.
Also the doc.
Oh, no, sorry.
On the numbers, not the order, please.
Order's gonna be really quickly on what the constructive defense, then it's gonna be, real quick, let me just plug my laptop in, it's alright. I'll send the doc and wait for that to get there in the meantime. Everyone good?
You sent them.
Yeah.
I think I just got it. One second.
Okay, sounds good.
Let me just open it.
Okay. Everyone get them?
Yep.
Okay. Start at the top. They say we give you no warrants about the ICC is bad, but they literally concede every single one. They concede that A, there's tons of unqualified judges. B, they concede raid maker, which says it influences and prevents domestic peace processes, which are more effective. Insofar as that is true, those are all independent warrants. They say no new warrants, but insofar as first rebuttal and second rebuttal get to introduce new arguments, there's no reason why that shouldn't apply to warrants. Then let's go to their case. On ecocide, they can't even define what ecocide is in cross. They just say it's crimes against the environment. What does that mean? What does that do? Met Office finds that there's tons of causes of climate change. We produce greenhouse gases through burning fossil fuels, deforestation, agriculture, transportation. Insofar as all of that is true, they can't stop people driving their cars around. They can't stop agriculture from having to deforest in order to produce food. That means those are all independent reasons climate change still persists. But then there's reasons why the court is structurally unequipped to go after environment crimes. Kaminsky 24 writes the treaty as it stood was too weak to address the full range of threats facing nature and the climate. The ICC is mostly ruled on cases of genocide and war crimes. The court has been criticized for reluctance to investigate environmental crimes. The ICC has sent at least 5 complaints and alleging crimes that Berkeley and Amazon began a preliminary investigation and has yet to respond to the others. This postdates their evidence by a month, which is really crucial because it proves that they aren't actually making progress. But then third, their own Harvey evidence concedes that absent multiple actors joining the ICC, we won't be able to solve ecocide. Harvey says that China, India, Russia, and other major emitters of greenhouse gases are not party to it, which limits solvency. Then finally, China thumps efforts. Climate Action Tracker 24. Coal remains China's primary energy source. New coal plant construction remains high. China's policies and targets remain highly insufficient for its chance to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Is critically important for China as one of the world's largest emitters to rapidly decarbonize in the short term and implementing more ambitious decarbonization policies. Then let's go to funding. First, there are 130 countries already in the ICC that are all obligated to send in mandatory funding. There's zero warranting in their case as to why the US uniquely is going to suddenly solve all of the other problems. But then they give you the NATO example, but NATO is different. It's a military alliance to counter Russia. Trump has repeatedly said that he does not believe in the ICC or its jurisdiction, which is why independently he doesn't encourage allies to fund. But then budget increases have to be approved by member states, which never happens. The Coalition for ICC 22 writes the court's budget has consistently been limited by state parties' failures on several occasions. The court to request resources. States share responsibility for ensuring appropriate resources for the entire court through settling its annual budget, but they haven't increased it. That's why their example of Sudan is really bad. It says that the investigation concluded because they already found enough evidence and were going to prosecute the person, not because of funding decreases. But then, even then, there's no way to prosecute. Ferragamo finds that countries have run up millions of dollars in overdue payments. There's zero consequences for rich countries to fund the ICC, which is why empirically never happened. On AI, first, their link is already triggered. Autonomous naval drones will be deployed by 2024 per GERTS. The military strategy preventing attack hellscape is use of naval drone technologies, including autonomous vessels around Taiwan, deploy thousands of autonomous weapons for hellscape. By the end of the year, seek maritime superiority near Taiwan to repel Beijing. Ignore the next card. This means that the UUVs that they trigger, second strike capabilities already exist, even if the ICC one, we would say the ICC can only prosecute after we've deployed the drones, but then B, it means the technology already exists, and they say that the time frame is immediate because China perceives that these drones are bad. Insofar as that's true, the link is terminally non-unique, but then there are existing regulations on laws, but increased regulations would fail and guarantee civilian casualties. Now, 22. There's an existing body of international laws that address concern an autonomous weapon system is prohibited if it behaves unpredictably or its intended performance is unreliable. This solves the safety concerns that they talk about. Cut the rest of the card. And when I see Hassan is terrible on the question of how conclusively the IC laws can be regulated, finds that robots have autonomy over their immediate decisions, but they generally do not have autonomy over their goal selection of the weapon. Choose what types of objects to engage. It's not a and it says that the capability is not currently available on the AWS, which means there's no drones that have the capabilities that can be regulated. But then they say it's investor confidence. But we would say if there's zero threat of prosecution, there's zero decrease in investor confidence.
Can I get a mark, please?
Yes.
Real quick, can you repeat your Sudan indict?
The Sudan indict is that the reason that they stopped the reason that they ended funding for Sudan was because they concluded the investigation, not because they needed more money.
All marks sending, taking 9 seconds or so.
Yeah.
Moving on a little bit, right?
Okay. Adopt consent.
That's 26. Let me open the mark and I'll keep taking count. 26 plus 9 is what? 34? No, 35, right?
Yeah, 35.
Alright. 1 second. Just waiting on mark and I'm just start right.
Sounds good.
Alright, I think I might just got it. Give me 1 second. Just opening it, yeah. Alright, cool. Alright. 140 plus 35 makes it 215. 205? No. 140 plus 215. Good. Am I right? I think I'm right.
Yes, I'm right. Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah, you should be fine.
Alright. Something docked. Affect. Just call it clear if needed. It'll be fastened to cards or slide on notifications.
Our front line's gonna be on the dock too. right?
No, but I'll be slow on the front lines. If.
Okay, got it.
Alrighty. Time starts now. On EcoSat, let us concede the fact that China already admits and it's not going to be prosecuting in the long term. On C2, they messed up because there's no contestation on the fact that Trump will not fill in, which definitely means that we get some sort of link because they've conceded the fact that even if the budget doesn't increase, the larger portion of the budget would go to the United States because the proportion is spent by economy, which is all the voluntary funding would then come to the United States because the United States goes to mandatory fund. Remember, there's no link level responses that the US wouldn't fund, and they don't make any implication on why that doesn't happen, which means even if we don't win the funding link on the budget increases, or if we don't win like other countries pay, we definitely would affect that the US still pays, and because the pie now gets larger to the US, which is going to give more mandatory funding, you definitely saw it back. On the internet, they say like the field offices were closing because the case was closed. No, even if that's true, our evidence says the reason we are able to do some right now is specifically because there's been a trade-off with Ukraine, and you can see the empirical analysis that when we did have field offices, we were able to see 3 times the increase in fatalities there, and that threat of arrest warrants in itself was able to solve back. But then specifically on the fact that Trump likes NATO and military organizations, no, Trump still cares about the ICC because the US helped write the treaty too, and definitely once you're already in the organization, he doesn't want to seem perceptually weak. They don't need a non-compliance link on Trump. But even if they try to go for some non-compliance on Trump will get special punishment because the prosecutor constantly that Trump should bear the consequences of the decision to sanction the ICC. If Trump takes a step, he should assume the same passive response that he got from the former ICC prosecutor. Article 70 of the Rome Statute prohibits all offenses against the repeating. Prosecutor Khan wants to make a mission out of Trump to make him show that there's some sort of strength from the ICC, which means even if they try to go for Trump on fun, we definitely win the link there. On C2, on laws, all these things that laws are already being said, but no, our evidence is sending a critical mass of laws, which is 1,000 CUV drones, which would definitely sell back for their impact because it's about specifically being able to uncover China's second strike capabilities. Second, they see that law regulation, again, you can't regulate for laws, arguments that you regulate for laws, arguments that laws just don't get deployed, which sells back for any sort of defense they read. On this thing that our evidence is bad, no, their evidence only concludes that laws will not be held accountable because it's from 2017. Our evidence says that these laws can automatically detect Chinese SNBNs, which means it definitely falls under the ICC. The warrant on their evidence why laws are not going to be prosecuted because they can't make their own decision. But the study that they cite in the evidence is from 2017. Ours definitely says that China can get these things can go in China on their own, on their case. On the overview, there's literally still no warrant on the Radmaker evidence. It literally just says it creates more peace, but we'll give you warrants why it's good. The ICC is good at solving international issues. 3 warrants. The ICC kills domestic support for bad leaders, ample 18. International law constraining governments by establishing and appropriate behavior that help domestic actors to mobilize against repressive regimes. All leaders, even non-democratic ones, require some level of domestic support, maintaining their hold. ICC often establishes field officers, transmits radio broadcasts, and engages in education awareness. When you decrease domestic support, it kills leaders from the inside. And the ICC imposes international costs on destructive regimes, ample 18. Perpetrators suffer international costs across all stages. The ICC is involved in naming costs, third parties implement economic and political sanctions. Cut the card there. And on the judge, this means the ICC actually cuts off the root cause of conflict because it changes leaders' district calculus. Cut the next card. On their judges link, their judges link is based on one example. We see that judges are actually really good. Don't let them sway you with one empiric. Article 36 of the Rome Statute, judges should be chosen who possess the highest qualifications regarding the respective state appointment to the highest judicial officer transferred and merit-based national nominations. On the politicization link, ICC appeal check backs for a politicization, international criminal court. Both the prosecutor and defense have the right to appeal a trial chamber decision on the verdict and the sentence, and appeals are submitted to 5 judges on the appeals chamber. Cut the card there. And there's no frivolous cases. Numerous check in the ICC treaty will prevent frivolous or politically motivated cases, for the ICC will only cover the most egregious international crimes. Cut the card there. And if the US can block on the UNSC, that means their arguments not unique. The US can do whatever it wants. On the chilling effect, investigations never happen. Put the book complementary. Amendment 21. The court operates on a principle complementary, meaning the ICC will not accept jurisdiction when a state exercises its own prerogatives. What this means is that they can always refer courts cases back to the US, which means the US will always get the first say, which definitely means there's no prosecutions on the US government as a whole because they can just put it in their own courts. There's also just no impact scenario because there's no warrant what leads to war, which actors strike for. They just GPC, but GPC competition does not lead to GPC war. Hold the line there. Alan Carter, their own arbitrary evidence sucks. The conclusion flows aft. Conclusion, don't fit within legal framework if the target is lawful, the weaponry is irrelevant. And also consider terrorists aren't protected. The line after what they highlight. Exceptions to which will allow for legitimately targeting civilians should the civilians in question actively directly participate in the combat. And terrorists are definitely participating in combat when they're building nuclear weapons. Also, on their line, their evidence just says that if safe havens are key, if actors get materials, but they have not read any evidence that actors get enriched materials, which means even if safe havens are key for developing weapons of mass destruction, they can never actually get it. And Iran's too weak to actually provide any materials. Nuke this month. The Iran deal and the Iranian nuclear program endorsed by UNC does not expire until October 25. Insofar the nuclear deal there, Iran can't get nuked and can't give materials, and if materials aren't there, you can't actually do anything with safe havens.
Is everything ready?
No, it's didn't work.
Wait, so the front lines are not in this?
No, that's the phone's off that.
So what is FLS? That's not front lines.
I might have just copied.
There was like a frontline evidence.
Oh,
like,
Yeah.
Wait, so frontline evidence is in the.
The evidence is there, yeah.
Okay.
The ASIM thing.
Okay.
Trump
Okay.
stuff, yeah.
Okay. And that's the only frontline evidence, right?
Yeah. Yeah, all the evidence that was read for fine is there, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
Okay. The mark should be. Why is Google Docs not working? Yep, okay.
Okay.
Mark should be
Right, once we get that, we're good for cross.
Yep.
can,
Just
yeah,
got it.
cool.
We're good for cross.
Sure.
Could I take the first question?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. So, on China, what's considered like critical mass?
Yeah, I'd say 1,000 UVs that can go to your second strike
Okay.
capabilities is a critical mass.
So 1,000.
Right.
Okay. Perfect.
Right, and also none of your evidence is specific to UVs going to the Taiwan Strait where China's second strike
Wait, no,
capabilities
it
are.
is. It talks about how like I can. Like,
No,
it's,
all it says is that unmanned drones were sent, none of them are underwater unmanned drones.
wait, no, it's literally naval drones. Insofar as that
They're
is
not
true, it
fully
directly-
unmanned, that's the issue,
Well, it's wait.
that's the issue.
Okay, we can.
That,
we can
that's
address
the
that later.
uniqueness, right, that's the whole point of laws, right, because
Wait,
the
no,
percep-
but these are autonomous weapons. Insofar as
wait,
that is true.
hold up, unmanned versus autonomous are very different, right, unmanned is what laws are, because they're fully autonomous. You can have an autonomous drone that can like strike something, but you're still putting the orders in. These UVs, there's no orders in, they're just deployed to the strait, and they can dismantle, or they're not going to dismantle unless they,
Wait, so
unless they're
which
told to.
evidence says they have orders in your case?
That's why we're sending 1,000 drones that,
Yeah,
that
well,
are able to.
Wait, so this
We
sends
don't-
1,000 drones.
Hold up.
that-
So we don't need to win any sort of thing that these drones will dismantle China's second strike capabilities. That's ridiculous. That's never gonna happen. The perception of China feeling that there are unmanned drones that can actually dismantle second strike capabilities and uncover their second strike capabilities leads to a first strike, because these
Okay,
second strike
sure.
capabilities are
Yeah,
the backbone of
Also,
defense.
if you read the evidence, it literally says including unmanned autonomous vessels around Taiwan.
Sure. Again, I just said a critical mass definitely works. Like
Critical-
sending,
wait,
sending 10 drones to the
It
Taiwan.
says deploy thousands of autonomous
Wait.
weapons for health.
Right.
Thousands.
Right. Hold up.
Autonomous.
And let's
all of that evidence.
and let's just look at the now. The 1,000 drones are being sent this August.
No. This
Yes.
evidence says by the end of 2024.
No.
We've already sent them.
We
Your
haven't
evidence is.
sent
Your
that-
evidence is pretty bad.
Your
to question
evidence
this
doesn't.
is
Okay,
not-
hold up.
this
We
is
can do the
separate.
evidence comparison later, but your evidence isn't. We haven't sent 1,000 drones to the Taiwanese Strait.
It says
Like, we just haven't.
it says we literally plan to. We had it. We like.
We
Decided to deploy thousands by the end of 2024.
But we just
Isn't-
haven't, because
wait,
our
no, we
evidence
have.
specifically says the
Your-
strategy goes in place August 2025.
Wait,
But
your
can I get a
evidence
question?
is talking about like different.
There's
stuff.
it's the same hellscape
Wait, but
strategy.
then either way, that means the drones are already
No,
developed
they're
because
n-
we already have all of them.
Right, but
Insofar
our-
as that is true, this evidence specific to deploy
No,
by
okay,
the
hold
end of
up.
2024.
No uniqueness claims were made that if the drones are developed,
Wait,
they
no,
won't
that-
be rescinded
wait,
back.
wait,
That was
no,
the-
we literally make this implication rebuttal. It's really slow and it should be on your flow. We
Sure.
tell you that it means that they can't do anything because they already have these drones and the ICC can only prosecute after they've deployed them.
But
Insofar
you-
as that is true, like,
That doesn't respond to the link that companies feel that they're going to get prosecuted, so
yeah, but
investors
if the
pull out
drones
the straw.
already exist, then it doesn't matter, and
Wait.
the US has already bought them, it doesn't matter.
Wait, it does, because companies' perceptions of that would
Wait,
definitely.
why did, okay,
But
sure.
now you get a
companies-
question, we
yeah,
spent
go
2:30
ahead.
on this, right? Let's talk about weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah,
Name me
sure.
one piece of evidence that says terrorists have the raw materials.
Sure, I can read you our case evidence.
A highlighted line.
Yeah, for sure. Like, our Satterfield evidence says that Al Qaeda has worked to like obtain nuclear weapons, state sponsors.
Yeah,
like,
they've wanted to get
states,
nuclear.
like Iran is a nuclear state that has.
Wait, Iran is not a nuclear state. None of your evidence says that
Like,
terrorists have raw
They
materials.
have nuclear like material.
Wait, you make no implication of that. There's no implication. You
Wait,
say
no, but like
your
these
ev-
responses are all in second rebuttal. If you want us to answer them, we'll answer them in the next speech.
No, the implication of case evidence that Iran has like nuclear.
We don't need to implicate it in rebuttal. But, okay. We're starting prep now. 156.
156, or like 55, I guess.
Call 155.5.
Alright, cool. So the order is just going to be on our overview, our case, weighing, their case. Right.
The overview on their case?
The overview on our case.
Like
So the-
fails.
Like our
Oh,
overview,
oh,
like
yes.
our overview of like ICC
Monta.
fails, that stuff. Yeah, and it also like combines their overview stuff. Cool. Everyone's good. Time to start my first word. Oh, this is Monte Vista, by the way, speaking on the con. Alright. Starting the overview, Rainmaker 21 says the IC has structural defects and biased judges. That's what Hush said as well. That's why Provoc 17, the meta study finds that involvement decrease likelihood of conflicts ending. They say even no warrants, but A, we say biased judges. Even if they want to say judges are good, they cite the IC itself. That's biased, prefer our actual empirics. But second, we tell you that prevents domestic peace processes. That's cold conceded, which Provoc says that conflicts are extended 47% by. Even if some leaders are killed, it doesn't matter if they were replaced by worse leaders in conflicts, which continues and causes 6 times more death according to the evidence. And they say international costs of the IC, but our argument is that international costs is bad. They prosecute leaders at bad times and destroy regional agreements, which is what leads to the 6 times increase in the long run. On the U.S. military, we'll go over this argument. Year 24, the U.S. and military superpower hinging on its ability to act Rome signed by U.S. board to be exposed to politically motivated investigations under the ICC. And Neil 25, the vague language in the Rome statute called military to refrain from taking lawful action under a fear of punishment makes the U.S. unable to respond to genocide and authoritarianism. 119.5 flexible military key to oriented making and power reduction, which bans 18.5 that it's key to check international threats from military expansion in Russia, China, NOCO, Iran, and more. They say the right to appeals allows like the U.S. is politically motivated, like egregious, but Neil says the language is so vague in the Rome statute allows for successful prosecution. That means appeals can't check that. They also can see that it's a deterrent effect because those investigations can still happen in the first place. They say the UNSC can block it, but they at best only defer courts for 1 year. It's also an uncarded analytic. All that bumps ass solvency too, even if they want to go for it. Also, then they say they refer courts back to the U.S., but no evidence indicates the U.S. is prosecuting right now. It was also independently dealing with their case because it means that nothing actually on their links triggers. Finally, they say we have no impact scenarios, but they can see A, grants 18 that allows for Chinese Russian expansion and great power war. The only case says a great power war caused extinction. B, Barnett says there's a 99% drop in war deaths due to the U.S. That's conceded. It constrains all the worst conflicts. Key because it's the only comparative evidence in the round of with or about the U.S. On the way, first the pre-work, power reduction literally solves their scenarios. The root cause of conflict is authoritarian leaders, non-state actors being able to do whatever they want and undermine rule of law. The second, scope. At best, they only address justice places like China and Sudan. We address power on a global scale and solve their scenarios. Finally, on time frame, the ICC takes years to make decisions. It doesn't even solve in time for an immediate funding or China scenario, which is what they're trying to go for. Prefer that the neg does power reduction now, you know it's immediate. On funding. First of all, 130 countries are funding it already. There's no warranty on why U.S. is the right line. That's conceded. The second, they say NATO is different. It's a military org. Trump says he doesn't care about the ICC. He is sanctioning it. They say Trump cares, but no, he doesn't. The U.S. wrote the Rome Statute decades ago. Prefer what Trump has said now. They say special prosecution. That's in the context of war crimes. They can see the Fairmont evidence that says there is literally zero enforcement or incentive for states to actually fund. That's why there's millions of dollars in overdue payments. States have no incentive. Yeah, okay. On AI, GERD 24 found the military UAVs, including naval drones, were already mass deployed in Taiwan to the end of 24 last year. They say critical masses of thousands in crossfire. GERD says thousands of drones were already sent and are already being used, meaning that we're already counting critical mass and it's specific to UAVs. They consider that the implication is that if their time frame is somehow immediate, their impact should have already triggered, but it didn't. Next, really the ICC only prosecutes after drones commit a crime because you need to know about it, it has to commit. The logic is simple, you only prosecute the murder itself, not the knife sitting on the table. At that point, the ICC can't solve for the case because miscount has to happen first, then the ICC steps in. Also extend the time frame way that the ICC takes years if their scenario is immediate. ICC does not solve.
If I'm not wrong, 125 left? Or 135 taken?
You guys used 155.
Oh, 155, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
105.
That's prep. It's gonna be app weighing neg. Is anybody not ready? So I'm gonna do phone lines first.
Yep.
Okay. Go to the Sudan argument, extended. Coalition for ICC in 22 finds that right now the ICC is ineffective because it's being underfunded, but when the US joins, they increase funding out of Article 117 from REM, and Trump historically increases ally commitments to international organizations, so people fund, which would establish field offices that can help get warrants against genocidal leaders in Sudan right now. Report angle evidence finding the ICC warrants led to a 3 times decrease in civilian fatalities. It's important to act because the Sudanese military is using chemical weapons which have killed over 150,000 people and displaced 11 million. The ongoing Sudanese conflict risks regional instability through organized crime and extremist groups, and LME 24 finds that Africa is on the cusp of war and would draw in the US, China, Europe, Russia, and Iran, which means that we have a broader scope of countries. They tell you that it's just China and Russia. We have more. There's more conflict. This causes extinction as Star 15 finds the nuclear war would create post-war environment, too cold and dark to grow food, humans vanish forever. First, they tell you that there are 100 countries funding, there's no bright line. The bright line is a proportion of the budget allocated to the United States, because the uniqueness proves that not enough because of voluntary funding and inflation, which means that the US fills in for some amount of the deficit. Then they tell you that Trump does not care about the ICC. They concede that they made no response to Trump wouldn't fund under fiat, you would fund, and the frontlines conceded that he would not want to seem weak in front of the ICC. And third, they concede the fact that Article 70 and Prosecutor Khan means that Trump is uniquely going to be targeted, and like he can be prosecuted for it. Then they tell you that like the evidence about special prosecution in the context of war crimes, no, it's about Article 70, the inhibition of justice. Then they tell you that there's no incentive to fund, it doesn't matter, it's mandatory, and Prosecutor Khan would go after him. On the weighing, they tell you that power projection, a rule of law solves it. They tell you that we tell you that power projection is an incident, which means that it cannot be a prereq basically on the time frame, but there's also no conflict scenario, it's just competition. The scenario has to boil down to something. They tell you that they have a wider scope. No, we have more scope because there's more countries involved in the Red Sea near Sudan, which is key to trade, and that's the draw-in warrants. Then they tell you that they're winning on time frame because it takes the ICC time to make decisions. There's no warrant why it takes time. In Ukraine, we made decisions really quickly, and we established field offices super quickly. There's large delineated time frame on their internal link. You have to rise up the escalation ladder. The escalation ladder is already high for our conflict. The Brink analysis goes as Sudan has just started unlawful gas attacks, and that means that when it goes unpunished, norms are degraded per Robinson evidence, which means that countries in Africa in great power perceive that all rules are off, and that supercharges the likelihood that they use larger munitions, more unethical strategies that all create more conflict, and when norms are degraded, it's harder to punish countries that violate them. It's try or die on Africa and conflict.
Time frame on their case.
Oh, and delineated time frame is implicated onto their case because it takes much longer for their scenario to go nuclear, because great power competition has been happening for a long time, but you don't know how long it takes for the nukes to happen, or how long it takes for the perception that the US is a weaker force to happen. On the military stuff, the Vindman evidence is conceded, which says that the principle of complementarity solves. Insofar cases always get referred to the US first, that means that the ICC never actually investigates them because the US deals with them themselves, and the ICC does not perceive it as an issue
Which is why we're not chilled right now.
Which is why we're not chilled right now. But second, they can block it through the UNSC. The UNSC defense has no implication on our argument because if the US doesn't like it, then they're just going to block it through the Security Council, which means the prosecutions never go through, and at the point at which prosecutions never go through, the US never gets chilled. But also, there's no conflict scenario read. It just says that competition happens, not that we're on track to conflict. The uniqueness picture is wrong.
We're good for class.
Yeah, we're
A
good.
second ago.
Oh, we got a timer.
Yeah, I'm good for
Alright,
Alright.
we don't have the first question.
Cool. We'll take first question. Yeah. All right. So why does it matter that it's like legally like binding if it's not enforced?
What do you mean?
Like, why does like the fact
So
that like there's like a
we-
rule written in the
We
like those
read
statutes? Yeah.
specific incentive on the current prosecutor of the ICC, Karim Khan, who wants to go after Trump. Yeah, maybe they didn't want to go after the other countries you're talking about, but insofar the actor analysis on the current
Wait, but
prosecutor wanting to go after Trump is conceded. That
Also,
second,
let's just
you're-
can we just clear something up in this round? Since rebuttal, not a single response was made that Trump wouldn't fund. The response and the implication of the response was that other countries wouldn't listen to Trump funding. But we
Wait,
still
wait,
get
wait,
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 hold up,
in
hold up,
summary,
hold up.
we
But
had
that wasn't a
entire-
rebuttal.
Farragut
wait, can I just-
presented in rebuttal says there's no enforcement, which is why Trump wouldn't fund. That's backed by the ones that we give you.
No.
That Trump actively
But
hates
that-
the
but-
ICC.
but
Also,
that-
first summary is not
that
like you can bring up
betrays-
stuff
no,
in
no,
first
no.
summary.
That
new responses.
definitely betrays the conceded actor analysis on the new prosecutor Kareem Khan, who
It's
wants to
not
go after
All-
Trump.
it's
Okay,
not conceded.
wait.
Can I get a
All
question?
that was like
please?
Newman's second summary. It's not conceded.
Okay, you're gonna say it's conceded, we're saying it's not conceded, let's just go to the another
Yeah,
question.
y'all can take a question.
Let's go specifically to your impact scenario.
Yeah.
Tell me, from the brand's evidence, what is the scenario? Because all your evidence, quote unquote, says is great power competition is back. Russia has conducted major military modernization. China has built up historic proportions. NOCO has a massive nuclear arsenal. What is the scenario?
So we do two things, right? We say that A, Brands 18 says it allows for Chinese and Russian expansionism, which we also say your own case says a great
Wait,
power
where's
war causes
expansionism?
extinction.
Wait,
So
where
it's
does the
on
word
your own
expansionism
case.
say? Wait, where's the
It's-
word expansionism? It's
Russia
not-
is expanding military forces. China has a build up of historic proportions. I
Sure,
believe I'm
there's
quoting-
competition, but where's the scenario?
Yeah,
The
wait,
entire
wait.
scenario is A, in your own case, which you also qualify, even then B, you
Because there's a
concede that
conflict
you
they're
didn't
drawn
respond to the
into.
Barnett evidence because the comparative implies there's a 99% drop in war deaths. So
You can-
even if you don't want to buy brands, you can still buy that there's been a 99% drop in war deaths. That's still
You can win this
impact.
90% drop in war deaths, but what's the scenario? Our scenario is that great powers get drawn in because of a conflict, because the
here's
Red
problem.
Gulf is
You
important.
conceded that, like the brand evidence says, absent American power projection, Russia and China massively expanded
Where?
their military.
Where?
Insofar as,
I don't see the word absent even. It just
It says America is committed to overwhelming military primacy, accounting for 45% of world defense spending, and maintains peerless global power projection capabilities. Insofar as that's true, it's telling.
you're just making implications after evidence that were not there.
No,
Word-
no, no.
let's-
And,
why don't we
wait,
just
and,
read-
and if you read the next lines, it talks about how all of these things
The next
place
line
extreme
wasn't
pressure.
highlighted.
No. Wait, no.
You can't
like,
extrapolate
you're not
words.
flexing. No. Here's
That was
the line.
red.
Here's the line that I'm talking about. It says that these things have like displayed
Where?
like it talks about how there's significant operational demands on U.S. forces.
That's not a
Insofar-
conflict warrant.
Wait,
Operational
that is a
demand.
conflict
Okay.
warrant because it says that all of these
It's a
conflicts
conflict warrant.
require the U.S. to step in.
I think in order for you to win the argument, you not only have to win that competition happens, but that we're on track to conflict because of said competition. I think
Say
that
we're-
that's why
the
the
evidence
uniqueness
is pretty
picture is flawed.
explicit that we are on the track to
Where-
great power war
Okay,
absent.
it's
that's
fine,
that's
it's
fine.
fine.
That's fine.
Absent US.
Okay, we'll take the remainder of our prep starting now. Order's gonna be the wing, then it's going to be, sort of the overview, then it's going to be this military decade. Starting the war, power projection literally solves for all of their scenarios because it deters China and Russia from invading, and you see the root cause of conflict is authoritarian leaders that the U.S. solves it. They say it's just not instant, but they've conceded that any constraint on U.S. military ignites winning influence that independently allows China and Russia to expand, and Brand says the great power war requires U.S. military capabilities after that conflict escalates. They say Ukraine was instant, but Putin still hasn't been arrested or anything at Putin's case. They say the brink is now, but it takes time for their link to happen, whereas ours is immediate because the U.S. is immediately deterred from operations, but theirs takes time for field offices to be created, for funding to come in, for that to then lead to prosecutions, and that then lead to them actually prosecuting Sudan. Insofar as that's true, the great power war that they talk about goes forever. On the overview is basically conceded. Prorock finds that the ICC intervenes and decreases the likelihood of conflicts ending because it wrecks regional peace deals. This independently turns their Sudan argument because it means that there's no chance of the conflict ending absent the ICC because it only prolongs the conflict. They just they concede that like leaders just get replaced with worse ones. On the military extended, Yared says the U.S. military hinging on its ability to act and constrain China. Growth signs the U.S. would be posed to politically motivated investigations under the ICC. Neil 20 finds that vague language would cause military to refrain from taking awful actions. 119 finds that flexible military is key to early decision-making power projection. And finds that power projection is key to check international threats from military expansion by Russia, China, and NOCO that otherwise cause great power war. They say they block it through the UNSC, but they've conceded A, it's a thumbs-ass solvency because they would just block anything else like funding, and they concede they at best defer courts for 1 year. And on Vindman, they've conceded that the U.S. isn't investigating right now, which means that the ICC would have jurisdiction over military efforts, and they've conceded it's perceptual on the no impact scenario. Remember, they conceded Barnett that there's a 99% drop in war deaths and on net less conflict, which independently looks at their arguments because creates less conflict hotspots and less opportunities for John. Then, on their case, remember this, they've conceded the Ferragamo evidence that there's zero enforcement for Article 70. Even if the judge wanted to prosecute Trump, there's literally no way he can because there's zero enforcement outlined for things like that. They just say Trump cares, but they've conceded that Trump has actively opposes the ICC right now because it constrains his power and he's actively sanctioning it. Insofar as that is true, it means that he doesn't have any incentive to fund it because it actively makes him more weak.
Start on the net case, halfway. Everyone is good. Time start now. Terminal defects is conceded. Vindman specifically tells us that principle complementary means that once there's an ICC investigation of the U.S. courts can first take jurisdiction, which prevents any chilling effect because the ICC won't do any prosecution because the U.S. takes it back home. The only front line is the U.S. is not prosecuting right now because the ICC hasn't issued any warrants right now. In the AF world, if you buy our link that the ICC issues warrants, but the U.S. always gets first jurisdiction because of the principle of complementary, then there's no chilling effect because U.S. courts do nothing when the U.S. commanders just conceded terminal defense on their case. You literally can't access case at that point. At that point, extend our case first. Coalition for ICC 22 finds that right now the ICC is ineffective because being underfunded, but when the U.S. tries to increase funding on Article 117 from Ram and Trump, has historically increases ally commitments in international organizations, so people find out to establish field offices that can get help warrants against international leaders in Sudan right now. Overall, evidence by the ICC warrants to 3 times decrease in civilian fatalities. It is important to act because Sudanese military using chemical warfare, which is causing a famine and killing men, which is causing regional instability because extremist groups, which LME 24 finds that cause great power war because draw in key red T states, because states like China, US, and Iran for Russia, which cause nuke war extinction because it creates an environment too cold to grow food. On the overview, you just do the evidence comparison. The overview is specific to non-specific to Sudan. Our knowledge evidence is specific to the ICC and finds the 3 times decrease in a specific fatalities, which means you can always prefer our evidence because it's specific to the scenario. This is not implicated to the scenario. On the second analysis that Trump wouldn't fund, they've considered analysis that Prosecutor Khan wants to make a mission out of Trump and he wants to put Trump on the international stage, which definitely means that A, travel restrictions hurt Trump because he definitely wants to do power projection, and they've considered the fact that Trump definitely needs to care about power projection, and they've considered the fact that it looks weak if he doesn't fund and he cut other funding to fund. They've also considered if the budget doesn't increase, because we get the portion of the pie to the United States, there's less voluntary funding, there's more mandatory funding. On the way, they just said that U.S. expanding its presence is key. They've conceded that power protection takes a long time to happen, which definitely means argument triggers first, and they've conceded immediately when Sudan started unlawful gas attacks, which risks all rules are off warranty, which leads to it happening right now. They've conceded uniqueness of the AF because Sudan using chemical weapons sets up a catalyst of bad norms, which gets other African states to get worse and more conflict. Specifically, you also do not know what the implication of U.S. military power projection is if complementary principle is true, and saying there's no impact scenario. Just because there's competition doesn't mean there's actual conflict. Ours is a uniqueness scenario where there's conflict happening right now. They should have been uniqueness where U.S. military is down right now for power projection to happen. That means uniqueness flows, try it out on F, and you can break the imperials on Hornago, and there's just terminal defense on the case, which was fully conceded.